There is a photograph sitting on a shelf somewhere in a house in the province of Batangas. It is a family photo, taken at a reunion about 6 years ago. There are 31 people in it. Cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors who became so close they were practically blood. Everyone is smiling. Everyone is dressed in their best floral dresses and Sunday best. And right near the center of that photo, slightly tilted, like whoever held the camera did not quite know where to place her, is a young woman named Clara. She is 24 years old in that photo. She is smiling too. But if you look closely, really closely at her eyes, she is not smiling with them. And here is the thing. That was the last photo ever taken of Clara at a family reunion. Because 2 months after it was printed and framed and hung on the wall, the family quietly, deliberately, and without a single phone call, removed her from everything. And Clara did not find out she had been erased until the day she came back. Now, before you think this is a simple story about a family argument that got out of hand, you need to pause right there. Because what happened to Clara goes deeper than a fight at the dinner table or a misunderstanding over borrowed money. What happened to Clara is something that millions of Filipinos will recognize immediately, not because it is uncommon, but because it is so common that most people who have lived it never actually speak about it out loud. There is a phenomenon that exists inside many Filipino households, especially large extended families, where one person, often quietly, often gradually, becomes the one that the group decides to set aside. Not because they did something terrible, but because they refuse to shrink. They refuse to stay in the role the family assigned them. And the family, without holding a meeting or taking a vote, begins to collectively behave as though that person is fading from the picture. Sometimes literally. But Clara's story does not end with being erased. It ends with a revelation that nobody in that family saw coming. And when you hear what that revelation was, you will understand why this story stayed with me long after I first came across it. Clara Reyes grew up in a town called Lipa in Batangas, the kind of place where everybody knows your Lola's nickname and your tita remembers the exact year you were born with more precision than your own birth certificate. She was the second of 4 children. Her father worked in construction. Her mother sold kakanin at the wet market on weekends. They were not poor in the way that breaks everything. They were poor in the way that requires enormous creativity just to keep things ordinary. Clara was sharp. The kind of sharp that teachers notice from the first week of school. By the time she was in high school, she had already figured out that the way out of the life that felt too small for her was through education. Not because anyone told her that, but because she could see it herself. She could look at her relatives, her cousins, the people in her neighborhood, and she could see the patterns. She could see which decisions led where. And from a very young age, she made a private decision that she was going to make different ones. The trouble started, as it often does in Filipino families, not with something dramatic but with something small. A comment at a birthday party. A question that felt more like a judgment. Clara was 20 years old when she first started to feel the subtle but unmistakable shift in how her extended family spoke to her. Her cousins, who had gone the more traditional route, finished 2-year vocational courses, taken jobs at the local government, married young, started families, had begun to occupy a kind of social status in the family circle that came with belonging. And Clara, who had chosen a different path, who was working 3 part-time jobs while finishing her degree in information technology in Batangas City, who had not yet produced the markers of stability that the family used to measure a woman's worth, was beginning to feel like she was being watched. Not admired. Watched. Like a question that nobody wanted to ask out loud, but everybody was privately asking. And that feeling, that quiet pressure that so many Filipino women know far too well, was only just beginning. The first real incident happened at her cousin's wedding. Clara had saved up for 3 weeks to buy a gift and a decent outfit. She arrived alone because she did not have a boyfriend to bring, and she knew that was going to become a topic before the night was over. She was right. Her tita Clara, the unofficial matriarch of the extended family, a woman whose opinions carried the weight of law in their clan, pulled her aside near the dessert table and said, in the casual cutting way that only Filipino aunts have truly mastered, "Clara, when are you going to stop dreaming and start living like a real woman?" She smiled. She laughed a little. She said something polite and walked away. But something shifted in her that night. Because it was not just what Tita Cora said. It was the way the cousins nearby heard it and did not disagree. It was the way her own mother, standing a few feet away, looked down at her plate. And it was the way Clara realized, for the first time with full clarity, that in this family, her ambition was not something to be proud of. It was something to be tolerated until she outgrew it and came to her senses. Over the next 2 years, Clara threw herself into her work. She graduated. She got a job at a small tech company in Makati. She was not earning much, not yet, but she was building. She was learning. She was networking in ways that the family back in Lipa would not have been able to see or understand. And the problem with building something that other people cannot yet see is that to them, it looks like nothing. To the cousins who had already built their visible lives, their concrete houses, their second-hand cars, their children's school uniforms hung neatly on the line every morning, Clara looked stalled. And in a culture where a woman's timeline is measured not just by financial success but by marriage and children and the approval of the people who raised her, looking stalled is a particular kind of failure. The family group chat, that chaotic and beautiful and sometimes brutal institution that most Filipino families will immediately recognize, began to feel like a space where Clara's name only appeared when someone needed something from her or when someone wanted to make a point using her as a cautionary example. She stayed quiet. She kept working. But she was noticing everything. It was the reunion of 2019 that cracked something open. The family held their annual gathering at her Lola's old property in the province. Clara came. She brought food. She helped set up the tables. She played with the younger kids. She laughed when she was supposed to laugh. But that afternoon, during the part of the reunion where the family did their informal life updates, going around the circle sharing what everyone had been up to, something happened that Clara has described in her own words as the moment she finally understood exactly where she stood. Her cousin 8BEA, who had just given birth to her third child, received a blessing from the Lola with tears in her eyes. Her cousin Jed's wife, who had just finished her nursing board exams, received a long round of applause. And when it was Clara's turn, and she mentioned that she had just signed a freelance contract with a company in Singapore, there was a pause. A brief, quiet, oddly loud pause. And then her Tita Cora said, "Freelance? So still no real job? And still no boyfriend?" And the table moved on. Just like that. And Clara sat there, plate in her hands, and decided quietly and without drama that she was done explaining herself to people who had already decided who she was. What happened next is where the story takes a turn that nobody in that family expected. Clara did not fight back. She did not post anything dramatic on social media. She did not send a long message in the group chat calling people out. She simply and methodically began to disappear from the family's orbit. She stopped attending gatherings. She stopped responding to requests for money, which had quietly started coming in more frequently as her cousins assumed her Singapore contract meant she was now wealthy. She sent her parents money directly and privately. She stopped explaining herself to anyone. And the family, interpreting her silence as guilt, as shame, as the confirmation that a woman who chose ambition over family would eventually have nothing, began to fill in the narrative on their own. Rumors spread through the clan the way rumors do in close-knit Filipino families, fast and unchallenged and embellished at every retelling. One cousin said she had debt problems. Another said she had gotten involved with a married man abroad. Her Tita Cora told people that Clara had simply lost her way and was too ashamed to show her face. And then came the reunion of 2021. The one that Clara was not invited to. Not confronted. Not asked about. Simply not included. No message. No missed call. Just her absence, delivered like a verdict that had already been decided. Now here is where I want you to really sit with this for a moment. Because what was happening to Clara during those years that the family thought she was disappearing in shame is almost too sharp to believe. Clara had not given up. She had not run from anything. She had been building. Quietly, methodically, without any audience, without any approval, without anyone watching. Her Singapore contract had expanded into a full consulting arrangement. She had taken courses in digital marketing and had begun picking up international clients. She had saved enough to invest in a small apartment unit in Laguna, not because it was glamorous but because she had done the math and understood that property builds in ways that salaries alone cannot sustain. She had no social media presence. She had told no one. And this is the detail that I find most quietly devastating about her story. She was succeeding in a way that was completely invisible to everyone who had already decided she was a failure. And somewhere back in Batangas, her name was being said in disappointed tones at family dinners while she sat alone in a rented room in Makati running numbers on her laptop, completely at peace with who she was becoming. By 2023, Clara had crossed a threshold that she had once only written about in a notebook she kept during her lowest months in Makati. She had cleared all her debts. Her consulting income had reached a level that placed her, by any reasonable standard, in the top income bracket for her age group in the Philippines. She owned 2 properties. She had clients in 3 countries. She had a small remote team of 4 people working with her. And she had done all of this with no social media announcement, no borrowed clout, no family connections leveraged, and no one in her corner cheering her on. Just skill, discipline, and an almost stubborn refusal to need validation from people who had never offered it freely. And then one afternoon in July of 2023, she received a message. Not from her parents. Not from a cousin. From her Lola. The old woman, now 82, sharp as ever, had somehow gotten Clara's number through her mother and typed out, in the careful misspelled way of elderly Filipinos navigating smartphones, that there was going to be a big reunion in December. And she wanted Clara to come. Not because the family had voted to welcome her back, but because the Lola had something she needed to say. Something she had been carrying for a very long time. And that single message changed the entire direction of what this story was about to become. Clara arrived at the reunion on a Saturday morning in December. She drove herself in a car that she had bought outright, no financing, no loan, no one's name on the deed but hers. It was not a flashy car. She had specifically chosen not to make an entrance. She wore a simple floral dress and her hair pulled back the way she always wore it when she was focused and calm. She brought food from a well-known restaurant in Batangas City, enough for the whole family, packed neatly in containers. She arrived early, before most of the extended family had gotten there, and she helped the helpers set up the long tables in the yard of her Lola's old house. The same yard where 4 years earlier she had sat in quiet devastation and decided to stop explaining herself to anyone. The helpers recognized her immediately. A few neighbors who had known her since childhood came over and hugged her without hesitation. And then the family started arriving. And if you have ever been to a Filipino family reunion, you already know what kind of moment this was. There is no moment more politically loaded, more charged with unspoken history, more capable of revealing the exact architecture of a family's unwritten rules, than the moment someone who has been away too long walks back into the yard. The first wave of reactions was exactly what you would expect. Tita Cora arrived, and when she saw Clara she stopped walking for a full 3 seconds. Then she smiled the smile of someone who is recalibrating very quickly and said, "Clara, you came. Not we missed you. Not I am glad you are here. Just you came," spoken with the faint surprise of someone who had not prepared for the situation they now found themselves inside. Her cousins greeted her with that particular brand of Filipino warmth that functions simultaneously as affection and interrogation. "Where have you been? What are you doing now? Are you seeing someone? You look different. Payat Kana. Have you eaten?" The questions came fast and Clara answered them pleasantly and briefly and gave nothing away. She laughed. She asked about their children by name. She helped carry the bilao of pancit from the car. And the entire time she was doing this, ordinary and present and completely unbothered, the whispers were already starting on the other side of the yard. Because somebody had noticed the car. And somebody else had quietly done the math on the restaurant food she brought. And the numbers did not add up to the Clara they had written off in their heads. The afternoon deepened. The food came out. The karaoke machine appeared, as it always does at Filipino gatherings, with the inevitability of gravity. The younger kids ran between the legs of the adults. Someone's baby was passed around like a blessing. The older relatives settled into their plastic chairs with their plates and their opinions. And Clara sat among them and was, by every visible measure, completely ordinary. She was not performing success. She was not correcting anyone's assumptions. She was not waiting for a moment to make a point. She was just there. And this, it turned out, was more unsettling to certain members of the family than any dramatic entrance could have been. Because when you have told yourself a story about someone for years and that person shows up and simply does not match your story, not because they are trying to prove you wrong but because they are no longer the person you decided they were, it creates a discomfort that has no easy exit. And you could see it on the faces of certain relatives that afternoon. That quiet, unresolved discomfort of a narrative that is no longer going the way the narrator wrote it. And then came the moment that everyone at that reunion would later describe as the moment the afternoon changed permanently. The Lola, still sharp at 82, asked for quiet. She stood up from her chair slowly, the way old Filipino women do, with the weight of decades made visible in every movement, and she called Clara by name. Not to embarrass her. Not to make a speech about forgiveness or second chances. She called Clara's name because she had something to say that she had held onto for far too long. She reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was old. The creases were deep. She held it out toward Clara and she said, in a voice that was steady and quiet and carried across the entire yard without effort, "This was supposed to be yours 6 years ago. I did not give it to you because they told me you were not ready. I should not have listened to them." And the yard went completely silent. Not the polite silence of people waiting for a toast to end. The real silence. The kind that falls when something true is about to be spoken in a room where truth has been carefully avoided for a very long time. What was in that folded piece of paper was not what anyone in that yard expected. It was not a letter. It was not a prayer card. It was a deed. A deed to a small lot on the edge of the family's old property in Batangas, a piece of land that the Lola had quietly set aside years ago with a specific and private intention. The old woman had always known, in the way that certain elders know things without ever saying them out loud, which of her grandchildren carried something different. Not better. Different. The kind of different that either gets slowly crushed by the weight of a family's expectations or survives them and becomes something the family does not quite have language for. And she had decided, quietly and without telling a single soul, that if that particular grandchild survived, if Clara held on through the years when nobody was holding on to her, then the land was hers. The deed had been drawn up 6 years ago. Just before the reunion of 2019. The same reunion where Tita Clara had dismissed her Singapore contract in front of the whole family and asked why she still had no boyfriend. The same reunion where Clara had quietly decided to stop explaining herself to anyone. The Lola had been waiting ever since. Watching from a distance, in the particular way of old Filipino women who have seen enough of life to know that some things cannot be forced and some people cannot be rushed. The paper passed from the Lola's hands into Clara's and for a moment Clara did not speak. She looked at the deed. She read the lot number and the description and the name written clearly in the space where the recipient's name should be. Her name. In ink. 6 years old. And then she looked up at her Lola and something happened in that look that people in that yard have described differently depending on who you ask. Some said Clara looked like she was going to cry. Others said she looked like someone who had just confirmed something she had quietly believed for years without proof. But everyone agreed on one thing. She did not look entirely surprised. Not the way you look when something comes from nowhere. Because Clara had known, somewhere deep in the part of her that kept building when no one was watching, that her Lola had never truly let go of her. She had not known about the deed. But she had known, in the way you know certain things without evidence, that one person in that family had never written her off. And now here was the proof. Old and folded and 6 years overdue and worth more than any applause ever could have been. What came after was the part of the story that the family would find hardest to sit with. Because the revelation of the deed did not just transfer land. It transferred understanding. And with understanding came the quiet, uncomfortable weight of accountability. Tita Clara sat very still for a long time. The cousins who had whispered the worst things about Clara during those 5 years looked at the food she had brought, at the car she had driven herself in, at the calm and unhurried way she sat with the deed in her hands, and they had to quietly reconcile the story they had told themselves with the woman sitting across from them. And here is what matters most about that moment. Clara did not use it to make anyone feel small. She did not list everything she had built while they doubted her. She did not correct the rumors one by one. She folded the deed carefully, placed it in her bag, looked at her Lola with an expression that said everything words could not carry, and then she picked up her plate of food and continued eating. Because she had not come back to prove anything to anyone. She had come back because an old woman who loved her had asked her to. And that was the only reason she needed. But there is one more layer to this story. And this is the part that, when I first came across it, made me stop completely and just sit with it in silence. Because what nobody at that reunion knew, what Clara had not told anyone, not her parents, not her cousins, not even the old woman who had waited 6 years to hand her that deed, is that Clara had already purchased the adjacent lot. On her own. Without knowing about the deed. Without knowing her Lola was watching. She had purchased it 18 months earlier because she had done her research on land values in Batangas and it was a sound and logical investment. She had not bought it for sentimental reasons. She had not bought it because she was drawn back to her family home by nostalgia or unresolved longing. She had bought it the way she made every decision during those years. Carefully. Quietly. Based on the numbers and nothing else. But when she received the deed from her Lola that afternoon and looked at which lot it was, she also understood something that made the air in her lungs feel suddenly very different. What she now owned, combined with what the Lola had just given her, was the entire original parcel of family land that her great-grandmother had built from nothing generations ago. The land that had been sold off piece by piece over the decades when the family needed money. Clara, without knowing it, without planning it, without anyone watching, had been buying it back. That is the secret that changed everything. Not a scandal. Not a betrayal. Not a hidden enemy lurking in the background of a family photo. Just the slow and quiet and almost unbelievable convergence of two acts of faith running parallel to each other for years without either woman knowing. An old woman who believed in a granddaughter that the rest of the family had written off. And a young woman who had been building, quietly, stubbornly, without an audience, in a direction that turned out to be the exact same direction the old woman's hope had always been pointed. There are 31 people in the family photo taken at the 2023 reunion. Clara is in it again. This time she is standing next to her Lola near the center of the frame. And if you look at her eyes this time, really look at them, they are different from the photo 6 years ago. Not because she has a deed in her bag and 2 lots of land and clients in 3 countries and a team she built entirely from scratch. But because she is finally, for the first time in years, standing in a yard full of family and not alone inside it. The relatives who said the worst things about her during those 5 years never formally apologized. Not in words. But they called. One by one, over the weeks and months following that December reunion, they called. And Clara, who had spent years becoming someone who did not need a single thing from any of them, answered every call. Because that is the thing about women who survive being erased. They do not come back to burn anything down. They come back to build. And they are very, very good at it.